Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the GitHub Copilot Bootcamp. My name's Anna, your producer for today, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we dig in, I do have some quick housekeeping. First, our code of conduct. Then I have 3 tips to help you make the most of our training. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours, right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. And now, some tips before we dive into the training. Our bootcamp has 4 live classes happening between February 4th and 13th. If you want to receive class reminders or the recording link, register on the series page. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. Along with our bootcamp, we have a Cloud Skills Challenge, and you can participate to receive a badge to highlight on your resume. To participate, just use the QR code on the screen or the link we'll share here in the chat. In the Cloud Skills Challenge, you will have access to a free course track on Microsoft Learn to deepen your knowledge of GitHub Copilot. And the last tip is that at the end of the session, we will share a 64% discount code for GitHub certifications. So stay tuned. With that, I'll now turn it over to our speaker today. Thank you for joining.
Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks for everybody that is joining us live or are watching this video on demand. My name is Loyan, and today we're gonna be sharing a few tips and tricks on how you can effectively use prompt engineering when you use GitHub Copilot. So let's get started. If you like to say hello on the chat, let us know from where you're watching, or if you also would like to ask questions, please do, and we'll be happy to answer the questions throughout this streaming and also at the end of the streaming too. So for today, we have 3 learning objectives. The first one is to understand what GitHub Copilot is if you are just getting started. Also learn what are the principles of responsible AI, and of course, explore GitHub Copilot with a live coding experience. So first things first, before we get started, before we get to the hands-on, what exactly is GitHub Copilot? So GitHub Copilot is an AI-powered coding assistant that is basically going to help you to be a little bit more productive when writing code. So think about GitHub Copilot as your pair programming buddy, someone that's going to be there to help you to answer questions, to help you to write code faster, or help to answer questions that you have about a project, where to find the log configuration, or where to find where the tests are set up, or how to improve a particular code, how to resolve a security vulnerability, or even to help you to scaffold a project completely from scratch. So GitHub Copilot, we have a few different flavors that we're going to be exploring here today. We can use it as a chat. We can also use as a more intelligent autocomplete or IntelliSense within the IDE. And we can also use it in a terminal. And of course, GitHub Copilot is also available in different IDEs. Today, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code, but if you are programming in other languages as well, it's also available for JetBrains. For example, if you're a Java developer, you use IntelliJ IDEA, or if you're a Python developer and you use PyCharm or even WebStorm, it's also available in other IDEs. And before we also get started, there is another very important topic that we need to touch base, which is responsible AI. So we also need to keep in mind that whenever we're using AI within our projects, we also have to be very responsible. And as developers, this is also our responsibility. So regardless of the systems that you are creating using AI, we need to be fair to all people, right? We cannot have any kind of like discernment. We also need to be able to use AI safely as well, right? With no discrimination whatsoever. Always be mindful with privacy and security. This is also our responsibility. So always be careful to not share any kind of like private information whenever you're using any kind of like AI tool. And also don't add any kind of like personal information, like banking information, anything that is confidential. So try to, it's very important when we are creating all these prompts to ask questions to our AI coding assistants to keep those things in mind. And we also have to be inclusive. Again, when we are testing, when we are adding the code, when we are adding testing data to any sort of like AI solution, we have to be very mindful and add all possible data points so we are not excluding anybody from the equation. And always be transparent and also accountability. And please do remember that at the end of the day, even if you are using an AI coding assistant, when you are doing your Git commit later, it's your name that's going to be there. So we need to be accountable for all that as well. So without further ado, let's go directly to the code in VS Code. I'll start sharing my presentation and I'll switch to VS Code. So we have VS Code. We don't have a project. We're going to create everything from scratch here today. And if you are watching us live, if you are in the chat, please feel free to add any kind of like tips and tricks that you might see throughout the video today as well. So I only have one folder here. I don't have any files. We're going to be creating one file together. And there are a few things that I would like you to notice. And if you don't notice them throughout the video today, I will share those with you as well. So let's start creating one file in JavaScript. So we're going to start coding things. So let's say, for example, that we're developing a system where we would like to run some user validation, some input validation. Suppose that we have a form where we have different form fields, and one of those fields are a telephone number. Now, when we come to Copilot, there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. I've just created this file over here, and in VS Code, before we can ask Copilot to start helping us, there are two icons that we have to notice. The first one, of course, you need to have the extension available. So if we go here to the extension, and if I search by Copilot, I will see that I have the GitHub Copilot enabled within my workspace. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, whenever you open this particular icon here on the top, you'll see that we have a few options. Or if you use Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P, if you are on Mac, you can also type for Copilot, and you will see a few things over here. If this is the first time that you're using Copilot, you will need to log in into your GitHub account and have Copilot enabled. In my case, I've been using Copilot for a while, so I have done the login already. So in this case, when I click on this, I can see the open chat. If not, you're going to be able to log in into your account. The second icon that I would like you to notice is here at the bottom of the page of the screen. On the right side, you'll see the Show Copilot Status menu. Here, you will see that Copilot is ready. It means that I am logged in and I'm ready to use Copilot. You can also disable Copilot in case you don't like it for any reasons or for any kind of files. For example, I'm writing a Markdown file, or I have received a CSS, like a style CSS file from the design team, and I'm not supposed to change it, so I'm just going to copy paste. So for that reason, for example, I would like to disable the completion in the CSS file. For that is very simple. Let's just do the emulation here. I have the CSS file, so I have VS Code with the focus on the CSS file. And I'm going to open, and I can disable completion for CSS. So in this way, you're not going to get any auto-completion for any CSS within this particular project. Right, so in my case, I'm ready, and we are ready to do all the coding. So let's do a few tests right here. So first things first, I would like to test the telephone number. So I can write a function. Function is valid phone number. And as you can see, I've only typed the name of my function, and Copilot is already giving me some recommendations. In this case, because it's a JavaScript file, it's trying to guess that I have a phone number field in my HTML. And then I have a regex, which is basically 10 numbers. And then it's just going to test the phone number. And there we go. We have one first option. You can use this, and then you can also try to improve this. This is usually what I do. I usually accept the recommendation from Copilot, and then I'll just add my flavor to it. The other thing that you can do as well, so let's go back and let's say that now I am passing the phone number. So now I've just changed a little bit, and now Copilot's not even recommending me to get the document by the element ID with phone number. It's already giving me a different option. And if we, depending on the case, you might also have a few different options here as well that you'll be able to choose from. So how can we improve this? Because right now I've tried 2 times already. I have this phone number. The other thing that when I didn't pass this at all, and if I remove this, I'm back to getting the element by ID. So how can I get a better recommendation from Copilot? There are a few different options here. So let's go back, and I'm going to add a comment. Function to validate a US phone number. So let's see if by adding this particular comment over here, we're going to get some better recommendations from Copilot. Again, it's probably thinking, see, now the code that is being recommended is completely different. So now again, I have my get element by ID from phone number, and then I have a phone regex. And it's a valid phone number, I get an alert. If it's not, I get an invalid alert. This is very, very good. So way better than before where it was just only 10 numbers. Can we do this a little bit better? We can. So here's one better way so we can narrow this down even a little bit more. So I'll just go back. So you can ignore the recommendation also by press your escape key on the keyboard. See that now Copilot's now giving me 3 other different options. So by hovering this ghost sort of text, I see these 3 options, and I can use the navigation here as well. Or if I want to, I can also open the completions panel, and it's going to give me all the different suggestions. So it's just loading the suggestions. Let's see. So here we go. We have one suggestion. We have a second suggestion, which is a little bit more complete, where we're getting the phone number from the input field, a regular expression to match the US phone number. So this one it's kind of okay. This one, it's a little bit better because it has all the comments as well. And again, it's checking if the input, displaying the result. And instead of having an alert, now this is automatically updating the HTML for me with the information, if it's a valid or invalid phone number. And see, we even have even more suggestions. So we have a fourth suggestion, a fifth one, and then we can accept any of these suggestions right here. So let's go back, and I'm going to accept the second suggestion. And there we go. We have the code here for us as well. But again, this is fine, and I could work with it and increment a little bit more with my logic that I will like here. But again, if we can be a little bit more specific, we're going to start to get even different results. So let's remove everything. And let's add an example. Let's give Copilot exactly an example of how we would like the phone number to be formatted and for us to validate that. So function to validate a US phone number in the following format. So usually we have, and again, I don't even have to type because Copilot's already thinking for me ahead and giving me an example of a phone number in the US where we have the area code between parentheses, and then we have the numbers. Okay, let's see what we get now. So I'll come back, I'll just add over here, and then let's see. And yeah, so this is a little bit different. So now my regular expression, it is a little bit different. Now I have the parentheses with 3 digits for the area code. I have the 3 digits now for the 456 over here. And then we have a dash and then 4 digits. So here is how we can start to be a little bit more specific. Notice that we started with a very generic function, and then Copilot was just suggesting a few lines of code that it will work. We could validate phone numbers, but from the generic 10 digits phone number, we get a little bit more specific. We start to get a little bit more from VS Code as well. So this is how we can do that. Now, what if I would like to do something more? So I will add the phone number here from number, so I can get rid of this line over here. So instead of the inner HTML, we can start to give VS Copilot a little bit more, instructions over here. So we have the phone number, and again, it's getting the context here. So this is very important. Notice that I just started typing, and what Copilot's doing is getting the context of my code, and it's trying to suggest me a few things to add to my documentation. So it actually works both ways. I can either use the source code to write my comments here, my documentation, or I can also try to provide some comments, and Copilot is going to get those comments and try to guess what I am trying to do. So display an error message if the number is invalid. So instead of display an error message, display an alert if the phone number is invalid. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to remove everything. I'm just going to remove this part right here and see if Copilot is actually going to pick up. And it did. So now I'm going to test, display an alert. It is displaying an alert. So again, we can mix and match until we are able to get exactly what we need out of Copilot. So this is indeed really, really nice. But okay, I have my project, it's fine. But now suppose that I'm moving on to my next task in my sprint. And what I would like to do is actually create a brand new project in Node.js. We're going to be using JavaScript as well. So we can do a Node.js sort of like a hello world. We would like to create a full REST API, but let's start with a hello world. So in order to do that, it's a little bit difficult for Copilot to just get, some text here from the comments and then create a brand new project. So we need a little bit more, help on this. And that's where the chat comes into place. So we can open the chat. And in the chat, we have a few different things. So this is very similar, for example, to what you see to like ChatGPT. You have your prompt over here at the bottom, and then you have the results that you're going to get from Copilot here on the top. And there is also a few things that you can do here. So docs, query, schema, search, start debugging, explain, fix, new notebook, set up tests, explain, help, clear. So we do have already a few helper functions. But the other thing that is also really, really nice about this is that here inside the text input of the prompt, we can select what is the LLM model that we would like to use. So, and this is something that is I think it's awesome. By default, it is usually the GPT-4o. And of course, the O3 Mini has just been released. It's in a preview mode. So we're going to be using that because it's really nice to play with the shiny new toy. So we're going to be using that today. So depending on what you like to do, what you like to achieve, you can select the LLM model that will be more appropriate for that particular task or function. The other thing that we have here also in this particular area for the chat, we have this first icon over here, the Copilot edits. This is also in preview mode that it's going to help us to edit the files. We're going to use this. This is really, really cool. We'll see that in action. And we also have our chat. So first things first, I'm going to try to use something here for new. The new, it's actually going to help us to scaffold a brand new file or project here within this workspace. So I'm going to type a few things for Copilot here to help us to create that Node.js project. So I don't know about you, but I always like to ask politely my AI coding assistant to help me. So I always like to start with, please help me. So let's start together, type together. Please help me to create a Node.js project with a hello world. We can stop here and then just ask this question to Copilot, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific because I don't like it to just create it for me without understanding what I'm doing. Again, although the AI coding assistant is providing all the source code to us, at the end of the day, we're still responsible for all the code that we are delivering. So I'm also going to ask to provide step-by-step and explain what has been created. So provide step-by-step explanation of the files that are created. And there you go. I'll just send, and it's going to generate, determining intent, searching for a project template index. So it's going all the way on the internet and then trying to get that, that template. And look, it already created a proposed directory structure for us for a Node.js Hello World project. Again, you could start and ask for a full REST API. The best way from my own experience that I find working with Copilot is that we start with the basics and then we build from it. Then it's a little bit more controlled, and then Copilot is able to suggest exactly what we need. So we have VS Code files. We have this extension. This is in using TypeScript. I would actually like in JavaScript. So let me ask Copilot to generate this again. I would like the project in Node.js using JavaScript files instead of TypeScript. And then let's see if Copilot's going to now get us exactly what we want. Again, I could have been a little bit more specific, telling Copilot that I would like JavaScript instead of TypeScript. So it just assumed that I wanted TypeScript. There we go. Now we have an ESLint, we have an extension, we have a package.json, and it is creating a hello world minimal sample. Okay, I think this is what we need. And do I need to create this from scratch, or do I need to copy each of these files one by one? No, no, no. We have this button right here, create workspace. So Copilot's actually going to do that for us. So I'm going to create this workspace, and it's going to select as a parent folder. So there you go. It's creating the hello world minimum for us. And we have, so let me remove this file that we were working before. Let me also remove my CSS file. Let me delete this right here. And let's see what has been created. So this seems to be an extension. Let me see. So this is the hello world from an extension. So still not exactly what we need. Let's try this again one more time. So I'm going to move this to the trash. And let's do a clear. So we can start from scratch. And this way we're going to clear all the context that we don't want. Let me copy all this over again. And we're going to delete all those files. Move all of them to the trash. Okay. Again, let's do this. Copilot, let's do this again. Round 2. I would like, let's change a little bit our prompt. I would like to create a REST API with Node.js and JavaScript. Please help me to create a Node.js project with a hello world and provide the steps explaining what needs to be done. And again, we're going to submit. Exactly, Bruno. It is a conversation. So we're here with our pair programming buddy, Copilot, and we're just talking to Copilot. You can name your Copilot if you want. So we're just talking to Copilot, and then Copilot is helping us. Okay, so now see that I have changed my prompt a little bit, and now I get a different suggestion. Sure, here's a proposed directory structure for a Node.js REST API. So the REST API did the trick here. So we have an index.js routes. So this looks like a little bit more of a REST API, a package.json. Okay, let's create this workspace then, and then we're going to go from there. So I'll select here REST. Let me create this other folder. So I'm going to create and select as a parent folder. And we'll let Copilot do the heavy lifting for us. And it has created, let's see. So we have an index.js. Let me move this a little bit. We have Express. Okay, so now it is exactly what we needed. We have the routes. We have the Express being instantiated, the port, the hello, and then the server is running. We also have a hello over here where on the get, we have a hello world, and we have JSON. Cool. This is nice. This is exactly what I wanted. So let's see now what will be the next steps. So right here, I know that I have to run an npm install because otherwise, if I try to run this, it's not going to work. But I want Copilot to tell me what exactly do I have to do. So again, I'm going to ask Copilot, what do I do next? Great that you have created all these files for me, but how do I run this project? How do I execute this project? And I'm going to ask exactly that. So how do I run this project? Locally. I'll add locally because I want that in my computer, in my own machine. Exactly, Clinton. If you don't know what you're doing, what happened to you before that didn't work out at first, you'll be frozen. That is exactly that. It's a great input. Okay, so now Copilot is telling me that I have to do an npm install, and then I have to do an npm start. But again, I like to be lazy. I'm a lazy developer when it comes to Copilot. I don't want to copy paste anything. I want Copilot to do all the heavy lifting for me. So what I'm going to do is, because it's open a terminal, so I am going to open the terminal here in VS Code. And I think I also need to change the directory to the REST. And then I think I have another one, my REST API. Okay. So I am now within this folder right here where I have all my source code. And notice that this is a command. So when you hover your mouse, you'll see these different icons. So one is copy. So I can simply copy and paste. The other one is to insert at a cursor. This is going to be very useful when we start modifying this code right here. The other one is the insert into terminal. In case you don't see this, you can click on more actions, and then you can apply an editor, insert into a new file. So you have a few different options. But since we are running this on the terminal, I'm going to select to insert at the terminal. npm install, I didn't have to copy. So let's install. Let's wait for the npm install. Thankfully, we don't have much to install over here. It has installed everything. And then we have to start the new server using npm start. So again, I'm not going to copy. I'm going to ask Copilot to put this directly on my terminal. So npm start, and I'll press enter. And the server is running. And it is telling me the server will run on port 3000. So you can access the API endpoint by opening this. The configuration is on the package.json. So if we open over here, we can see that we have the start script and the dependencies that have been installed. So this is great. So if we open this right now, and it open in my other window, let me move this real quick. We can see that is running a hello world. So I have a brand new hello world with Node.js, and I didn't have to code anything. Copilot did everything for me. So this is great. Let's come back. Okay, we have our hello world, but our goal is to actually have a REST API. So again, we're going to ask the help of our friend Copilot. I'm just going to close everything so we have a little bit more space over here. So when we ask Copilot, there are a few different things that we can use here. So we can provide context, which is very, very helpful. We'll see this in a few different ways within the next steps. But if we type the slash over here, we have something that's called the workspace. Let me see if I have the workspace here. Where is it? We can ask Copilot based on the workspace that we have to take that into consideration and then provide us the next step. So for the next step, let's say that we would like to create a REST API. Yes, it's at a workspace. Thank you. Let's say that we would like to create a REST API for a to-do task list. So this is exactly what we're going to be doing. So here with the @ you'll see that we can get answers from the web using GitHub. We can get answers with the terminal from VS Code, a few other different options here. And then we also have the workspace. So here in the workspace, we're going to say, generate an HTTP GET for a REST API to manage tasks. Again, instead of pausing here and stopping here, I would like to specify what a task is. So a task has a name, ID, and a flag to indicate if it is completed or not. And again, I will send this and we'll see what we get in response. Notice that when we are providing the workspace, and if we go back here, it's using all the 4 references. So we are stuffing the prompt here. We are providing the context to Copilot. And then Copilot is just going to collect all this information, get our prompt, process, and give us the response. So it's telling me, below is an example, create a new file. So this is nice. It's creating a new file for tasks. And then we're going to update our main server file with the new tasks route, and then start the server. Great. So we can do exactly that. So first things first, I'm going to create this tasks.js. Just gonna new file, tasks. And with that, what we can also do is insert, apply this in the editor. We can also insert this directly into the new file, but I'm gonna choose this first option. This is magic. This is beautiful. Look at this. We don't have to code. We can only watch Copilot working for us. This is beautiful. And again, we're going to accept the changes. This is really cool because this is an easy example because everything here is new. So everything is going to be this greenish sort of color because we're adding code here. So I can accept the changes. We can also see, and we'll see this later, when we ask Copilot to make changes for us, and then we can see things getting removed and then things getting added. And then into the index.js, let's open index.js. And again, I have my index.js, and I'm going to ask Copilot by applying in the editor to make the changes for me. Because yes, I do accept all these changes. Okay, so now as you can see, we are seeing all the differences that we have. So we have the hello, now we have the tasks, and I'm going to accept the changes. And then npm start, npm install and start, we don't have to, but I would like to access the tasks endpoint at these tasks. So let's see Copilot if there is a way that we can test this using the terminal. So how can I test the localhost tasks? Let me copy this. Using the terminal and not the browser. Because I'm very lazy today, y'all. We're just going to use Copilot for everything. Again, it's just getting, and it's giving me the curl. So we're going to try that. So let's open a terminal. We're going to run npm start. I'm going to open another terminal right here. So this is running. And I'm going to copy exactly this command. I'm just waiting for the terminal to start. Let me see. Okay, now it has started. So let's move this to the terminal. And let's get, so I have task 1 and task 2 already. So because we already have tasks over here. Nice. This is really nice. So we have a functional mini application running. Let's keep developing this, right? So now we would like to create tasks. So please help me to add an endpoint. So I can create tasks. I'm going to be a little bit more generic this time, but again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to provide the workspace context again. So Copilot again has all this context and can help me to only add what I need to this particular file. At least this is what I'm expecting. So to add an endpoint to creating, we have to follow these particular steps. So this is done. We don't have to do that. And then for the tasks itself, so it's getting all the information. So if we take a look here, we already have this, the require of the express, the router, the sample task, the endpoint, and the post endpoint as well. So let's use this again. Again, I'm just going to ask Copilot to add the code for me in my editor. So Rogério is asking if we can create unit tests using Copilot using our use cases. Yes, we can, and we're going to see this. Just give me a few minutes. We'll get there. So we're going to end this session today with a REST API with test cases as well. So the endpoint to list the tasks is here, and the endpoint to create a new task is also here. So accept the changes. Again, I'm lazy. How can I test this? The post endpoint using the terminal, because I don't want to open another extension and I don't want to open Postman. So let's ask Copilot 2 for the example, because I don't want to type anything. Beautiful. Look at this. We have the post. We already have the name of the new task. This is beautiful. So let's test it out, see if we're going to get that. So I'm going to press enter. And we can now post. What happened? Oh, I need to restart the server. Again, it's running. And we're getting an error. So the task name is required. Let's see what's the issue. Cannot destructure the property name. So right here, we are getting the party from the name. So why am I getting this issue? Again, I'm going to ask Copilot, what's happening here? So I'm just going to copy this. Help me to fix this error. I'm going to paste. Okay, so below is the change needed to fix the error. You need to add a JSON body parsing middleware to your index. This is interesting. I don't want to change my code for that, actually. So can you provide the correct way to test the code without these changes you suggested? Let's see. Again, it's thinking. It's just using these tasks as the reference, because this is what we have in our focus in open right now. So Copilot is going to use this as the context. Okay. Without adding the JSON, Express won't automatically parse your post body as JSON. One way to work around is to modify your endpoint to obtain the task data from the URL. Query parameters, don't know if I want to do that exactly. I'm going to go back to this then. So let's go to, this is for the index.js. Let's apply these changes. It's a very simple one. Okay, so this is the only thing that has changed, and I will accept the changes. So now let me pause this, and I'm going to restart, and we'll see if that's actually going to work this time. So again, I'm just having a conversation with Copilot, just verifying what are my options here. Copilot told me you can change your code. I've asked, I don't want to change my code. I would like a workaround. It also provided me a workaround. So between these two options, I'm just going to change my code. Okay, now let's do a now we have a new task that has been added to the to our task list. Let's go back to the curl and see if that has been created. Now we do have a third ID here. That's really nice. Okay, we can list the tasks. We can also create new tasks. Let's see if we can update. So help me create the endpoint to update a task. And again, I'm just going to pass here the workspace. The other thing here is that so far we've been working with the workspace as well. And with the files here on focus. If you like to, the other things that you can do, you can also drag and drop the file in particular that you like, or you can even upload another file as well. For example, if we would like to get the task list from a CSV file just to get started, you could also upload that and ask Copilot to parse the information and put in a JSON format, for example. So that's also an option just to help you know to kickstart your project. Again, let me pause before I forget again. I'm just gonna ask Copilot to do one more thing for me. And then we have the put endpoint. That's great. And here we can also create the new task. So again, I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to ask Copilot to apply all the changes for me because Copilot's my best friend right now. And again, it's rewriting the file for me. And after rewriting, it's going to highlight the difference. And okay, I'm going to accept all these changes. Nice. So we have another endpoint and we can continue doing that until we have everything, right? So one of the things that I would like to do now, and somebody has already highlighted that in the comments, is let's see if we can create unit test cases for this because we're writing this API and it's 2025. We need to have test cases. That is unacceptable to deliver things without test cases. So again, I'm just going to go back to the workspace and tell Copilot, I would like to add unit tests to this project. Can you help me to install any required dependencies and also provide the test cases for the task REST API? I'm asking for too much. I know. Let's see if Copilot is able to handle it. Again, I'm using the workspace. I have all the tasks over here. And let's see. This is beautiful. Below are the steps. I love seeing this because I don't have to do anything. And notice, we have not left VS Code for anything. We've opened the browser to test just that hello world, but that was it. Like, I don't have to go on the internet and search for things. So yes, let's do that. Let's install Jest. So again, I'm not gonna type. I'm just gonna ask Copilot to insert into the terminal for me. We're gonna insert into the terminal, and we'll see what happens. And the other thing that we also have to do is to add a new test script in our package.json. So as it is installing, it's going to modify the package.json. It hasn't done that already. So let's just give another minute. And meanwhile, let's take a look at the changes that Copilot is proposing us to do. So to test the API without needing to run the server, it's asking us to make a few changes as well in the index.js. This is good. And then to create a test case. Look at this, beautiful. We have the test API, and then we have all the test cases. And then we'll run the tests. So it's taking a while to add those dependencies. So we'll do this step by step. This is beautiful, beautiful. So it's taking longer. Let me just close this terminal right here. So we only have one now. And it's still installing for some reason, might be my computer. Okay, now it's done. So I should have just installed. Perfect. So now I also need to add this task script. Beautiful, right, Sophia? Look at this. We don't have to type anything. So test again, and now it's asking us to modify the index.js. So I'm just going to open index.js, and then I'm going to ask Copilot, do your magic. Just going to rewrite and then highlight the differences. In case it is removing something, it also shows in red, very similar to a difference when we are, looking to PRs in GitHub. I'm going to accept the changes. Excuse me. And then create the test cases. So here it's asking us to do all these tasks. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to create a new file. And again, I'm going to ask Copilot to add everything into this test file for me. Beautiful. And then we get to run all the tests. So let's accept first. So I'm going to accept the changes. Let me close all these files. And I'm going to run npm tests. Let's see. We're running jest. And it's going to run the loader. Found the test file. And it is running the test. So we have one test suite with 4 tests. And it took 7 seconds. All the tests are passing. This is great. What if we would like to know, for example, the test coverage? Maybe in the company that you work at, you do have like a minimum percentage of test coverage that is expected for any new code. So let's ask Copilot that. How can I check the test coverage? Yeah, I didn't type that correctly. So let's see if Copilot will catch my mistake as well. And then, yeah, test coverage. Yeah, the NPM test coverage. Again, let's see if that's going to work. So when you are debugging, Navneet is asking if when you are debugging an application, it can fix the bugs as well. So you can ask Copilot how to improve the code. I'll show you an example here as well. But look for the code coverage. We do have code coverage. We have a few lines, but this is pretty good. It's like 90%, 83%. So it's a pretty good code coverage. So I am very satisfied with the results that Copilot has provided to me. Now, let's see if we can improve this code even a little bit better, right? So what I'm going to ask Copilot to do is I'm going to drag and drop the tasks route over here. So I'm going to tag this file as a context. I can also open it, and I'm going to ask, how can we improve this code? We've written the code. It can be an existing code, can be a new code that was generated by Copilot. But in any case, let's see how we can improve this code if there is anything to be improved. So below is an improved version. We're adding input validations, error handling, and code structure enhancements. Again, beautiful. And we have key improvements here. This is great. See? Perfect. Again, I'm just going to ask Copilot to apply the changes for me because I really like this. Like, it is important to worry about security, input validations, error handling. So these are just basic things. It was nice that Copilot provided a very like simple code for us to get started. But now that things are starting to get real, it's really nice that it's improving the code for us as well. So yes, I do like this. So I'm accepting the changes. Yes, I do, and I'm gonna accept all the changes. The other thing that is that I've noticed here is that we're still using numerical sequence ID. Let me ask Copilot to see if we can use UI ID. So I would like to use UI ID for the task ID instead of a number. Can you tell me the changes I have to apply to my code? Let's see. Again, I can do this. This is great. I'm not gonna apply this, but I just wanna go back to one of the questions that was asked in the chat about partial code. So let's test something out. Let's test something else here in this code. For example, imagine that you are just started in this project. You open this. You're not exactly understanding this. What you can do as well. So you can select, I believe it's Command I or Control I that you can use, that you can ask Copilot directly when you are highlighting this particular part of the code. And again, I can ask to explain this code. And then not in the chat, but here in the VS Code itself. Let me even close the chat. And I can even drag this down a little bit. You'll see that now I have a full explanation of this code. And by using, I've used here one of the utility functions, which is the explain. And I have a detailed explanation of this code. You can also ask Copilot, for example, to propose a fix for problems of the selected code. So in case you do have a bug or something that you would like to fix, you can provide some context as well, highlight the code. You provide a little bit of the context of the issue that you have within your code, and Copilot will take that into consideration when providing you with an explanation as well. So you can also use this particular function with the inline VS Code. If you like to, again, you can edit this code. You can open that in the chat and continue the conversation as well. Okay, but this is, look, we started with a brand, like an empty folder. Now we ended up with a partial REST API. If we had a little bit more time, we could continue having fun with this and adding like a security layer, just asking Copilot on how we can do that. And, you know, keep improving this REST API until we feel that it's production ready. But with the latest recommendations, the latest suggestions, it had already suggested us to, you know, add the input validation, add error handling, which is missing within our code, which is great. And we can keep building on that until we actually have something that we would like to end up with. So one of the key takeaways here that I would like you to have from the session is, whenever you are prompting Copilot, make sure that it's not too much information, right? Start with the basics. Get that example with the phone number, right? We started with the generic one. Then we started, I would like to format and validate a US from number. It gave us a different suggestion. Then we were a little bit more specific. I would like to actually validate a US phone number with this particular example. So if you do have those examples, do provide that as a context to Copilot as well. One other thing that we could do here with that UI ID, and that is always also the reason that I don't like to go all full in whenever we are prompting Copilot is Copilot is going to take into consideration the code that you already have. And one of the most beautiful things that I find when working with Copilot is it does take into consideration naming conventions. So for example, again, I'm just going to use, go back to that is valid from number, right? Is valid phone number. And here, I'm just going to get some code suggestions, right? And then I want to check if it's valid email. So is valid email. And again, I can have an email regex. But now notice that I'm going to change a little bit how I am writing my code, right? I'm going to use is valid phone number. And again, it's going to return something for me. And now I want to validate email. Let's see. Look now at the name of the function that has been generated. So it is taking into consideration my own preferences, my own way of coding, and it's adapting. So this is something that is beautiful. So that is why that I would suggest everybody to go step by step. Like you're building a REST API, build your get endpoint, then you do your post. If you're adding the validations to your post endpoint, and then you ask Copilot to generate the put endpoint, it's going to take into consideration all the validations that you have, and it will try to apply the same. So again, start from the basics and build from there until Copilot gets all the context and take all that into consideration before providing the next suggestions to you. And with that, let's I would just like to thank you everybody for watching. And I don't know if we have any I don't know if we have any kind of like questions, but let me just show you my thank you slide. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for participating in the chat. And if we have any time for questions, happy to answer a few. Let's see. Let's see if we have any questions. There was one question from Navneet. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry if I'm not. Does Copilot follow different principles in writing code with different language? For example, using the object-oriented approach and procedural principle. It does take that into consideration as well. So it all depends on the context. Copilot does have support to a few different languages. So for example, the way that we write code here in JavaScript is a little bit different than we write code in Java. So it does take that the paradigm of the programming language into consideration. If we were writing code in Python, it will be a little bit different as well. So yes, it does take that into consideration, and it will follow the principles for each of the programming languages, or even if you are using a different framework. For example, the way that we do things using React or in Angular or Vue. So it does take all that into consideration. Is the documentation provided by Copilot? So there's another question from Jerry. Is the documentation provided by Copilot recommended for use in the code ready for deployment? I've been using Copilot professionally for like over 2 years. So I have used Copilot to, and I have a few some code in production right now that we do have a few suggestions from Copilot. So yes, we do have code that is ready for production. But again, something that is very important to highlight is that you are accepting these suggestions, right? And then at the end of the day, it is still your code that you are using. It's still your name that is being signed over there. So please do validate the suggestions that you are getting. Make sure that does make sense for the project that you are working on before you move any code to production, right? It will be the same thing as copying some code from the internet that you find on the internet and put into your project and then moving that to production. So make sure that you understand the suggestions that you are receiving. And if not, again, you can use Copilot to try to understand and ask Copilot to explain that code as well. Let's see if we have any other question. Yeah, this functionality is amazing. Thanks, Mark, for your comment. There are a few questions here about the challenges. I don't know if we have anybody here that would like to address that. So there is a question here. If we have a large workspace, like over 1,000 files, can we target a particular folder? You can. So you can drag and drop. Let me open the chat again. Let's try to do that. Let's see if that actually works. So let me close here. So I have the routes. Let's see only the routes. So yeah, I am attaching only this particular folder as a context. So if you do have a large workspace, you can target specific folders, and you can add more than one as well. So let's select the tests as well. So now I have the routes and the tests, and then you can select all the folders that you would like for Copilot to take into consideration as the context. Clinton had a question. In your daily routine coding, in which cases do you think Copilot works at its prime? For me, to be very honest, Copilot shines when writing unit tests. I love Copilot for unit tests. For the programming logic that we have within the code itself, it does help a lot. But sometimes, depending on the project that you are working on, there is very specific like business logic or that you have to apply that Copilot might not be aware, depending on the industry that you work with. But for unit tests, for me, it is where it shines the most and where it helps me the most. So I really love using Copilot for unit tests. I don't remember like writing a unit test from scratch in the past 2 years since I've started using Copilot. And I love that when you change a little bit the unit test case that it provides to you, it takes that into consideration, and then the next one it like suggests exactly to at least what I need. So I love that. There is another question here. What if you are trying to write something more complex that hasn't been written many times? Hello World's trivial, phone number validation, similarly. Again, the beauty of Copilot is that it does start picking up with the context. So as you are writing the code, as you are writing your business logic, Copilot will try to guess, will make suggestions on what will be the next steps that you are trying to do. So in that context, it does help a lot as well. And if you provide the comments, right, I think when you add those comments, or if you add a little bit of documentation to your code through the comments, that also helps, especially if you are providing the example. So it does help in that case as well. So thank you everybody for for all the comments. So there is one comment here. This is very useful as well. Copilot chat response is restricted to the file size. For example, a Java file with 2,000 lines of code has a response like prompt size is limit. I am not sure about that. So if anybody knows, I will need to check the documentation if there is any limitation regarding to the file size. Like the LLM model that you select behind the scenes, you can test it out. Like I see a lot of people that like to work with Claude. I've been using the GPT-4o for a very long time. Now that O3 Mini is out there, I'm testing it out and kind of like enjoying as well. But I mean, depending on what you need, just test all them out and see the one that you like the most. Sadiq asked a question: are there statistics that you can share about improved developer productivity using Copilot? So if you go to the session description today, I believe there are 3 learning path links that have been shared. So if you go there, there are some metrics, like official metrics from Microsoft on developer productivity. So these are very cool metrics. And but those are like overall market metrics. But indeed, it does improve developer productivity as well. There's another question. Thought stuff. How do you think it's changed how you think as a programmer using Copilot for a day-to-day development? This is a very interesting question. I like, again, I see Copilot as a great ally, especially on productivity and making me more efficient when I'm writing my code. So there are things that, especially when writing unit tests, since I've mentioned that I use Copilot for mostly writing unit tests, I've learned a lot of things about unit tests that I didn't know after starting using Copilot, like methods that I didn't have knowledge of. So it's kind of like an interesting journey in learning together with Copilot, that if I had to do that before, I would have to watch a video or I would need to read an article to learn about those. And just by seeing the suggestions provided by Copilot, I was seeing a few things that I haven't seen before, and then I did my research on it and kind of learned new things as well. So I think this is the other side of it, that we can also use this tool as a learning tool, so we can learn new things as well and explore new ways of doing things. Let's see what else. Hope I have answered your question. I'm sorry. There are some questions related to the bootcamp. Okay. If you have any questions, you can also ping me on LinkedIn as well, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining, and thanks again to our speaker. Our discount voucher is already available on the screen and in the YouTube chat. Please note that it is valid for 4 days. Use the QR code next to it or go to aka.ms/info-github-certs to follow the steps to redeem your discount. There's a limit of 1 GitHub discount voucher per person. This offer is non-transferable and cannot be combined with any other offer. This offer is not redeemable for cash. Taxes, if any, are the sole responsibility of the recipient. Microsoft reserves the right to cancel, change, or suspend this offer at any time without notice. We'll leave this up on the screen for a minute, and we'll see you at the next one.